WCI3 meteorologist Jacob Dickey. The time now is 2:02. We're back on digital platforms with an update on our one storm and our one severe thunderstorm warning for the area right now as we continue to monitor things here. This is still Cass and Morgan counties with a severe thunderstorm warning that has been extended until 2:30. We are doing digital only at this point and just checking back in to keep you updated. We're watching some information, getting some reports and more. And I wanted to bring you an update on this storm now as it passes north of Jacksonville, between Jacksonville and Virginia, really. And that's going to be on Illinois 78 as it carries to the south and east, pretty much paralleling Illinois 125, if not a little further to the south. And so that's the issue with this storm. A severe thunderstorm warning continues until 2:30 right now. And we are watching for 60-mile-an-hour winds, which is likely a given, but also could be some penny to quarter-size hail. The hail threat has seemed to come down just a little bit, but the National Weather Service does mention that they're still watching some broad, weak rotation with this storm, and that's why we're back here with the check-in. That's why that warning has been extended until 2:30. Here's a look at it. Again, a reminder, our National Weather Service radar in Lincoln is down. That radar is not available for external users. If you look on your app, you try to use Radar Scope or any other radar app you have, it shows it as down. However, internally, the National Weather Service in Lincoln does have access to that, and they're doing a great job chatting with us on what they are seeing with our media partners and more local EMA officials, what they're seeing. They've mentioned that there's still broad, persistent rotation with this storm somewhere near Virginia and Litterbury, and they also have a spotter report of a wall cloud. At the current moment, that rotation now south of Virginia, that wall cloud report came between Meteorologist and Aaronsville. So that's going to be with this edge of the storm as it slides to the south and east. There is no tornado warning, a tornado not imminently likely. Instead, we're with a severe thunderstorm warning, just watching that rotation to see how things play out through at least 2:30 for much of Cass and Morgan County. A little bit of a bigger picture here. I thought maybe it would take a more of a dive to the south and east. It's riding a boundary, and that boundary does eventually curve to the southeast, so it still may very well clip New Berlin, Waverly. We'll watch Springfield. If anything, I suspect Springfield, you'll hear plenty of rumblings of thunder as this storm is close enough here. You can hear thunder for miles outside of this storm. A bit hazy, though. We showed you that Springfield radar earlier, Springfield camera, I should say, looking to the west. Couldn't see the storm. Probably in the next 15 minutes, we'll get a much better vantage point of it. But we're watching this storm right here, and we've got to use the radar in St. Louis to show you what's happening. Much further away, so not as quality of a view that we'd like. Here's the edge of that boundary. You can see this white color right here. That's actually the outflow boundary, and it wraps back up on in and then continues that way. From the storms that were pushing through northwest Illinois this morning as they collapsed and extinguished on themselves, this storm was able to sustain itself. It then latched onto the boundary, produced some small hail and some gusty winds. The latest wind report was a 50-mile-an-hour gust between Meteorologist and Aaronsville. They were watching an area of rotation, and that would be close to Arcadia, south of Virginia at this point. In its direction, probably south side of Springfield, Chatham, Auburn, Divernon, Pawnee. You go down to the south there into northern Macoupin, Montgomery counties. That's where I think this storm is heading. It may very well, though, be Springfield and points to the south and east. There's Lake Springfield right here. You've got Lincoln Land College. There's the power plant right there. Downtown with the Capitol is right there. The west side is here. Highway 4 wraps around the north and west side there. Taylorville is to the south and east. This storm generally in that direction. We're hopeful it turns more to the south, but if it keeps on the railroad tracks that it's on now, based on the polygon, that's Springfield and eventually into Christian County. And so that's what we'll watch here and continue to monitor. Looks like we did just get an update from Lincoln. They are actually going to, they're going to keep the severe thunderstorm warning for now. And that's going to be the case through 2:30. I have not gotten any other storm reports of severe storms, just that 50-mile-an-hour wind gust and a visual on some rotation. Because it's on a boundary, that's when things can get a little funky, and that's what's happened today. We had a 10% chance. This is our 10% chance, just one storm in the area. There really isn't much there. A couple of little cells along Interstate 72, not concerned about those. Springfield, Illiopolis, Niantic, Harristown, Decatur. And then some light rain. This here is being indicated up high, that probably not making it down to the ground towards 155 north of Lincoln and along the Sangamon River south of the Illinois River. So this storm probably going to be it for the day for us here. as it moves on through. We expected one or two west of I-55, and there you go. We got one right there. Let's talk a little bit more about the broad rotation that we're looking at. Again, ideally, I'd love to use the Lincoln radar, but we're stuck with the St. Louis radar. What we're looking at here is the velocity, which is an indication of how particles are moving, how it's being sampled in the atmosphere, how it's moving around. Your reflectivity, those bucket of smelt paint, greens, yellows, reds, sometimes pinks. That is a look at the intensity. This is at how things are moving. From the St. Louis radar to the south, we know this green area is winds blowing towards, and this red is winds coming in. So a broad area of rotation right in this area does still appear probable. Remember also, because the radar is so far away, we're looking much higher up into the atmosphere, 5,000 to 10,000 feet from the St. Louis radar, if not a little higher than that. We aren't able to see the Lincoln radar, which is much closer, but the National Weather Service says they're still seeing. I mean, look how close that is. There's Lincoln. There's the storm, and that's 50 miles or so. Instead, we've got to use St. Louis. From St. Louis to Springfield itself is about 90 miles, if not a little more. And so not quite as good of a vantage point of this. But still, even if that's not rotating strong enough to produce a tornado, it still can be an indication of a stronger storm that is having some strong winds that mix down to the ground, even the chance for small hail. And a storm like this will give you plenty of lightning, no matter what happens. And that's the case with this particular storm here. I'll flip on the lightning product real fast, and you'll see how there's lots of strikes. Earlier, we measured 400 of them in a span of about 15 minutes. As I flip back to our base reflectivity and put the lightning back on, I'll sample it again. We'll see if it's trending up, down, or holding consistent. And it looks like we're at about 230. So maybe an indication that the intensity slowly diminishing with this particular storm. If that's the case, that's great. We'd like that. And I would suggest, based on what I'm able to see and understand, it may very well be doing that. But that doesn't mean the storm is over. That doesn't mean the severe threat is over. We like to look at the trend as our friend with these types of events. Kind of a downward trend, good, but sometimes they can pulse right back up. All right, just got an update from the National Weather Service. What they're saying is in recent scans, that velocity signature has become more disorganized. There are boundaries ahead of the storm, and the outflow boundary is from Buffalo to the current cell and then extending south and west. And based on what they're seeing, so I kind of mentioned that boundary looks like it's out ahead of the storm, which would indicate that the storm is blowing outward and losing its intensity. It cuts itself off from the warm and humid air. Jacksonville right now, I think it was 91 with a temperature of, with a dew point of 78. That's some juicy air that these storms can use if they're able to ingest it. But that outflow boundary sometimes can act like a barrier. It can't pull that into the storm, so it doesn't have as much food to feast on here. But that's still something with some boundaries out here ahead of it that have to be watched, and then that's where those cells towards Buffalo, north side of Springfield by the airport, points to the east near Sherman, and off towards Decatur where some of those other little cells are, but not a concern. I don't even think there's any lightning with those. Let's check it real quick. While we've got the lightning turned on. Some of these cells here, no lightning being detected, just a few spot showers. It's this one storm that's being watched pretty closely. Still fairly intense, still worth monitoring. Still has a severe thunderstorm warning until 2:30, so we'll give it the respect it deserves. But I'm optimistic at this point, fingers crossed, that as it continues to the east and south, if the outflow boundary stays out ahead of it, then that will keep it from ingesting much of that strong, high intensity, high instability of what I want to say. And that's the food that storms need to become severe. And so if that's the case, then maybe by 2:30, we'll just have a strong storm moving into Sangamon County. If there's an extension of the warning, of course, we'll keep you updated on that and monitor things for you moving forward. It kind of looked like it was going a little south and a little east here. It's riding that boundary and trying to follow it and play tag team. And so, of course, I thought maybe Jacksonville was coming. It looks like it stayed north of there. It might be on some railroad tracks down 125 into Springfield. Stay just south of Sherman, be Chatham, Curran, New Berlin, Loami, Old Berlin. And, I'd suggest this is probably making more of a turn towards Springfield at this point. So we'll pop back our sky cam, give you a vantage point. I'm going to turn this a little bit to give us a better angle so we can understand what we're looking at here. It looks like we're looking a little more north at that point, some of those smaller cells, but the storm of interest is off to the west, and that's where I want to take a peek at. So we'll find the capital, and there you go. As you can see that in the distance, I got about 2 seconds ahead. You can see that base right there off in the distance, very hazy, but still that's going to give us a good view if anything is happening. I have the worst luck with this camera. This camera and I don't get along ever. So we'll zoom it back out. There we go. So you can see off in the distance there's a base right there, rain-free base. There it is. And the storm itself is sitting right here, so we'll probably get a good vantage point of this between 2:30 and 3 as it comes into town. One thing of note, I'm looking at the flag on top of the Capitol, knowing that is west. The wind is actually blowing out of the north to the south. A lot of us have a south wind, but seeing that north wind gives me a sign that that rain-cooled air is pushing ahead of it, and so it may not be quite as intensive rain into the area. And so that's something we're watching, but that's a sign that at least the outflow winds are at least going to keep that more unstable air out of the storm. So we'll watch. Let's just go take a look at temperatures right now and dew points and see if we can't see any differences. Here you go. It's 86 in Springfield. Jacksonville now down to 76. Earlier there in the 90s. So that rain-cooled air pushing out ahead. 91 though in Taylorville. 88 in Mattoon. We are sitting with the dew point, however. They're in the middle 70s in spots. Dew point at 81 in Taylorville, 76 in Springfield, 74 in Decatur. So if this storm is able to tap in to that very humid air, then that is going to be plenty for it to take a look at. Plenty for it to take in and feed on. But the outflow boundary sitting between it and the storm cuts it off, and the storm may not be able to sustain itself for much more than an hour if that holds. Sometimes the storm can strengthen, pull that outflow boundary back in, says, nope, come here, and it pulls the air in. Sometimes those outflow boundaries can escape ahead of it, and that cuts those storms off from the humid and warm air that it likes to be on. Just because I'm curious, I want to look at the current heat index. And I got to pull that graph into my show real quick here so we can look at. Here's the heat index. Whew, 111 in Taylorville, 76 in Jacksonville. It feels like 96 in Springfield, 100 in Lincoln. So it's hot and humid out there. Certainly those dew points are really being pulled in ahead here. But you can see where that rain-cooled air has lowered the dew point, has lowered the temperature in Jacksonville, and that's what we expect and have continued to see. So we'll check back in, and I just heard an update chime in from the National Weather Service. Looks like they're continuing the severe thunderstorm warning until 2:30. It's 2:15 now. Again, for those of you coming in and out, we know that happens a lot. The Lincoln radar is actually not available for external users. They've got it inside the National Weather Service office in Lincoln. They don't have it available for us out here in the public. There's an internet issue. Sometimes the technology happens. But I can take a look at what we call our premium radar, and it's able to accompany for that. That's the one cell, Cass and Morgan County. A couple isolated showers along 72 towards Decatur. A couple of little isolated sprinkles possible here, but I think the air is probably too dry under there for it to make it down. And that's what's left of those storms that were in northwest Illinois. I'll zoom it out for you. Why don't we go back the last 6 hours or so, and you'll see how this batch, we said we had to watch and see what happened. Really started to weaken in northwest Illinois. That remnant boundary is in place, and then we've got this tail-end storm that's left with the severe thunderstorm warning for Cass and Morgan County. And on its current trajectory, it's probably going to be southwestern half of Sangamon County. Springfield south and west would probably carry into southwestern Christian County, Macoupin, Montgomery counties as well, if it's able to sustain itself. But there are still some signs that maybe the intensity is coming down. So perhaps the severe threat may not last much longer than 2:30. I don't want to say we're going to be done at 2:30, but it's still something we'll have to babysit and keep an eye on here as we've got that one little storm continuing to move on through. Let's go back and take a look at our velocity product and see if we can't get a view of that rotation. And I'll tell you what, this is looking from St. Louis. See where those greens and reds are fairly close together. Still an indication of some broad rotation. Now in northern Morgan County to the east of Litterbury, east of Illinois 78. And that general direction would carry it towards 123 south of Ashland, north of Alexander. So we'll watch it closely. It's not obvious to me at this point that this is more of a substantial threat. And part of that is because, again, we're using St. Louis. We don't have access to Lincoln, which is much closer. But still, that to me shows that at least at the mid-levels of the storm that we've got some brief rotation in spots here. You have a question or something I can help you with? So we're just watching the storm. So I got some folks behind. We're kind of watching things right now as we monitor these storms behind the scenes. And so we're just going to have to watch that little signature there. It'd be nice to have the Lincoln radar, but they're doing a great job of keeping us updated from their vantage point and what they're able to see. I'll switch to the Quad Cities one. This is going to look higher than that. This is looking at the top of the storm because of how far away it is, so it's not giving us as good of a vantage point. At this point, we're primarily hopping through this, crutching along with the St. Louis radar. But you'll notice this green line right here, that's that outflow boundary. It looks like it's a little bit ahead of it. So that's another sign to me that maybe we're on the tail end of things here for a little while longer for a bit. So we'll watch it. Still that broad area showing up, not immediately likely, but that still is enough to maybe bring some hail, perhaps bring some gusty winds into the region, northern Morgan, southern Cass County. Haven't heard any additional reports either. I know there are some storm spotters out there. This primarily is a wind threat, but we've just been watching that little area, and I'll take it back and kind of talk you through. Here we go. This is Schuyler County right there. This was when we were watching and thinking, oh, something interesting there from the St. Louis radar. Mid-level, of course. If that was low level, that'd be a pretty strong tornado signature, but this is a little higher because of the radar we're having to use. And you can see as it carried into Cass County there, still showing that broad little area. At one point here before 2 o'clock, we were watching this little spot, mid-levels, and then as it continues on, we just kind of see it pulse up and down, and I think at this point it's pulsing a little more down than it has been up in recent times. So that's what we're watching. Jack is here now, and I don't know if you want to chime in and say something, Jack, or... Are
we on TV?
Say it again?
Are we on TV right now?
We are not on TV, no. We are just doing digital only.
Okay. Because I see that we've got a preview there of the...
Yeah, just in case we had to. I don't think I can... Oh, you probably are on there because I'm running through program.
Okay.
So you're probably hearing it from there. So say something real quick.
Jack 1 2 3 4. Jack 1 2 3 4.
Nope, I don't hear you on that.
So I'll go and talk with them.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do, Jack, is I'm actually gonna sign off here for a little bit. We'll have another update about 2:30 if needed.
Okay.
And if not, we'll see if that warning is extended into Sangamon County. Still watching, still monitoring, but that's what I think we'll do. So we'll wrap this up, have another update if needed at 2:30 for the severe thunderstorm warning. We'll continue, and if there's an extension, we'll hop back on at 2:30 and keep you updated. I'm Meteorologist Jacob Dickey. Meteorologist Jack Griffin is also in the building, and we'll keep you updated.